Welcome to Bow Ties Are Sometimes Cool with myself, Ashley, and Ed. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Ash. How's things?
Very good, thank you. Very good. And yourself?
Not bad at all. Glad it's a Friday.
Absolutely. Always nice when it's a Friday. And tonight, we're going to be talking about Mulholland Drive. Now, Mulholland Drive, never seen it before, not really heard about it. Well, not in the sense of film, obviously the place. But Edward, young Edward here, convinced me it would be worthwhile me watching it. And I would definitely agree. Although during the film itself, I must admit I did have some moments, shall we say. But why do you love Mulholland Drive so much?
Okay, a couple of weeks ago, we had a chap called Rick Davey on, and he talked about his love of The Prisoner. Now, when I watched The Prisoner, I went out magazines you got at the time, no websites, you got magazines or fanzines about it. And there was a program mentioned in the Prisoner fanzines called Twin Peaks. Got into Twin Peaks and got completely obsessed with Twin Peaks. And through that, I got interested in the work of the writer-director of Twin Peaks, David Lynch. He's one of my absolute, I think, possibly one of my favourite human beings alive. He's up there with Brian Blessed and Tom Baker.
Good God.
He's a completely unique individual. He's got a vision and an eye for filmmaking like nobody else. His films don't look like anybody else's. They don't feel like anybody else's. They don't sound like anybody else's. You know, when you're watching a David Lynch film, you're watching a David Lynch film. Now, Ash, I think Mulholland Drive is possibly your first David Lynch film.
Yes, yeah. I've seen subsequently. I watched a few snippets. You sent me some trailers, Ed, trying to lure me in there. I will get a copy of Lost Highway. But yeah, Mulholland Drive, my first and one and only at the moment. But yeah, a great one to start with.
So I tell you what, well, you did this with me with the Karate Kid. I'm going to ask you now your thoughts as a complete newcomer to Lynch. What were your thoughts on Mulholland Drive, be it plot, be it direction style, be it sound design?
So when I watched it, and I was watching it the first time, I was thinking, yeah, okay, it's different. You don't know where it's going, and I'm not even sure whether this stuff is pure genius or rubbish. Now, it is. Now, don't be offended, but you're thinking, yeah, is this good? I mean, does this scene need? Does the film need this scene really? That sort of stuff. And I must admit, I got halfway through it, and I was thinking, well, I'm intrigued, so I'm going to carry on watching it because there's something intriguing about it, but I'm not really sure whether I'm enjoying it or not. Then we got into the sort of the second half, especially like the last quarter, I suppose, where obviously the penny starts to drop. You know, when she goes back, when Naomi Watts is in the car, yeah, and and then they go up to the house on the hill, and she gets introduced to that woman who she's been introduced to before. What was it, Coco? Was it like that?
Coco.
Well, just call me Coco. Everybody does. Pleased to meet you.
Yeah. And before you even get there, she's sort of saying the car stops in exactly the same place, and they say the same phrase to her. And then I was like, okay, so there's something going on here then. So what is it? Is it that the first bit was a dream, the second bit was a dream? I didn't know where it was going, but I was a bit more intrigued at that stage because it wasn't just a strange film. There was obviously a deeper meaning to it. Whereas I suppose until that point, I just thought, yeah, I'm sure this means something, but I'm not clever enough for it. so yeah. But then, even at the end of it, I didn't still quite get it totally. And I have to admit, that's where lovely YouTube comes in. So I watched the YouTube video, a couple of them, which kind of try to offer explanations as to what happened. Now, you know, obviously I like to think of myself as a fairly intelligent chap, but those things did really sort of expand my horizons. And then suddenly when they were talking about some of the things and like the deeper meaning of them, you know, like that little, like the homeless person that's behind the back of the restaurant, what does that really actually symbolize and so on. Then it was like, okay, this is very much all about symbolism then. So this is a dream, and it sort of unravels, and it's all her subconscious thinking about things that she's done. I mean, I've probably made it a bit broad there, but I don't want to turn it into an explanation video of Mulholland Drive. So yeah, that was my initial experience and thoughts on it. So if you've ever watched Mulholland Drive, I think you would benefit from watching this video on YouTube. It's called Mulholland Drive, Explained and Analysed. And it's by London City Girl. That's the channel. And it explains, I mean, it's only her opinion. She's just offering her take on it. It might not be definitive, but everything that she says kind of resonates and seems quite a reasonable explanation. And so you could argue, maybe I'm really stupid, or maybe you shouldn't have to do that with a film, that you actually have to. But when I watched that, then the film just seemed to be, it went from being a bit weird to being actually complete genius.
Yes.
And so, yeah, at that stage I was like, fine. But had I not watched that, I suppose some of it would have dropped into place, I guess, and maybe on repeat viewings, if I could have been bothered. Sounds awful. Sorry, it sounds awful. But it would have all fallen into place. But I think on a single viewing, I would have probably still left that film a bit perplexed if I'd not had that explanation. But then I went from that and it was like, yeah, this is brilliant.
I think that's the genius of David Lynch as a director. His very, very first film was a film called Eraserhead. It's probably the most terrifying thing I have ever seen in my life. And as much as I love him, I really don't want to ever watch it again. He then did The Elephant Man, which was a great mainstream success. He did Dune, the original. He was then lined up to be the director of Return of the Jedi, but I don't know if the studio turned him down or he turned the studio down. He did a film called Blue Velvet, which is a grubby, nasty little film. It's a very, very good film, but it's not a very nice film. And then he sort of, when he did Twin Peaks, he started to do this more experimental sort of style of filmmaking with sort of non-coherent, out of order, the style of Mulholland Drive. That became almost his house style. The way I look at a Lynch film, and David Lynch is notoriously obtuse. He won't explain his films. He won't be drawn on any of his films. I mean, the last film he made was one called Inland Empire. It was 3 hours long, shot on digital video. And in his interviews, he just says it's a film about a woman in trouble. And that's all he'll give away. Mulholland Drive, if someone interviews him and tries to draw him on what the reason was, he won't be drawn. But I think what his idea is similar to this. See, if you and I went to an art gallery and we looked at a big picture, we'd both tell a different story from what was happening in that picture. And I think he uses film as his canvas. He's an artist more than a filmmaker, and he uses the medium of film as his canvas.
Ideas are so beautiful and they're so abstract, and they do exist someplace. I don't know if there's a name for it, and I think they exist like fish, and I believe that if you sit quietly like you're fishing, you will catch ideas. The real, beautiful big ones swim kind of deep down there, so you have to be very quiet and, wait for them to come along.
If you catch an idea, any idea, it wasn't there and then it's there. It might just be a small fragment of, like I say, a feature film or a song or a lyric or whatever, but you got to write that idea down right away. And as you're writing, sometimes it's amazing how much comes out, from that one flash.
So you get an idea and it is like a seed. And in your mind, the idea is seen and felt. And it explodes like it's got electricity and light connected to it. And it has all the images and the feeling. And it's like in an instant, the idea. In an instant. Then the thing is translating that to some medium. It could be a film idea or a painting idea or a furniture idea. It doesn't matter. It wants to be something. It's a seed for something. So the whole thing is translating that idea to a medium. And in the case of film, it takes a long time, and you always need to go back and stay true to that idea.
The film is the thing. You work so hard, after the ideas come, to get this thing built, all the elements to feel correct, the whole to feel correct, in this beautiful language called cinema.
And I've watched Mulholland Drive probably 6 or 7 times. I think I watched it the same evening as you a couple of weeks ago. And I noticed a couple of pennies dropped with me that never dropped before, which is good. I was drawn in as much as I was drawn in the first time because it's that type of film. But the entity behind the dumpster, for example, my brain suddenly came into play. Of course, that's how Naomi Watts' character sees herself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then right at the very, very end, when they've been to the club, the nightclub with the lady singing, crying in Spanish.
Yes, yeah.
Club Silencio, where it's all, and then right at the very, very end, where it cuts back to then, you've got the lady with the blue hair who just says Silencio. It's almost like, yeah, she's killed herself, so her mind's not there. She's almost been absolved.
Her mind's
of
at rest.
Yeah, of all the terrible things she's done or plotted.
It's yeah, definitely, yeah. I need to watch it again. Because now I have the greater understanding. I think I'll enjoy it more. And obviously it just made more sense to me as I'm watching it. But the actresses are in it. The way it's acted is phenomenal, really. Naomi Watts and Laura Harring, is it? Yeah. Both of them just amazing. I'm just looking here because I like my trivia. Like I say in every single, I love my trivia. Well, it's not really my trivia. It's just what I read on the internet, really. But anyway, actually, that's not true. Some of it's my trivia. I picked up some of it from places when I've watched commentaries and things like that. Yeah, but clearly on this one, I am having to pinch the trivia because I don't know that much about the film. But really, when you try and find any trivia on this, it's very difficult to find any snippets. Really, everything is quite an elongated explanation because it's so open to interpretation. There's no small pieces of trivia on this film, unfortunately. At least I don't believe there are. Let's have a quick look then. Is there anything? This was Ann Miller's last full-length movie. Who's Ann Miller? Which one was Ann Miller?
She plays Coco.
Okay, yeah, okay. During the kitchen scene where Betty rehearses her audition with Rita, Laura Harring was reading from the actual script of the film. The pages of the script where Harring was... hang on. The page of the script where Harring read from is better seen on the Blu-ray. Okay, right. So basically, if you watch that scene again, certainly on Blu-ray, you'll probably see somewhere that there's a script pinned on the wall or something. Well, there we are. Why not? Marlon Brando used to have his lines fed to him via an earpiece. What else we got? Director David Lynch cast Naomi Watts and Laura Harring based on their photographs. Oh, yeah. So would I probably.
I'd heard a little thing through this casting director that I know and had met with many times, who was always lovely, Joanna Ray. And she had told my agent that David has a particular process. I was told he goes through a bunch of photographs and picks out a few. And if he falls in love with number 2 out of those 5 pictures, he's not meeting number 3, 4, and 5. Well, this is what I was told, which meant that my odds were higher and greater. And so I thought, okay, I got to do this. And because what if he's only meeting 5 or 4 or maybe even 3 people? So I literally got off the plane and went straight into Joanna Ray's office, T-shirt and jeans, no makeup, nothing, rushed right there.
Naomi came in and did not look exactly like the photograph that I had fallen in love with.
It was disappointing.
It was not disappointing.
A little bit.
It was devastating.
This film is deemed a poisonous letter to Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that. You can see that. It's sort of, right at the beginning, Naomi Watts' character. I mean, we know her real name's not Betty, it's Diane. She goes in all starry-eyed, having won a dance competition, to have this wonderful life, and it all goes down the toilet very, very, very quickly. She gets caught up in the real world of Hollywood rather than the idealised Hollywood.
Now, this one, Ed, try and explain this one to me. Only because you're more familiar with it. Director David Lynch, so they must have pulled this out of him at some point, has used or said that The Wizard of Oz and Sunset Boulevard were inspirations for the film.
He has. Sunset Boulevard is on my planet of things to watch at some point. Sunset Boulevard is a film about an actor whose career is sort of on its downward spiral, trying to get back up to where she was before, and it's all about the machine of Hollywood chewing up people and spitting them out. Wizard of Oz, I've not heard of Wizard of Oz for this one, but there's a previous film of his called Wild at Heart, which has got lots of calls to the Wizard of Oz. It's a road movie with Laura Dern and Nicolas Cage as a couple of lovers on the run from Laura Dern's family.
Mm.
And there's a couple of, obvious Wizard of Oz. You've got Laura Dern's mother, who's actually a mother in real life, playing a mother in the film, chasing him on a broomstick in a vision, and you've got Glinda the White Witch at the end of it. So yeah, but not this one, maybe not as much, but definitely Sunset Boulevard.
I'll have to look into it. I've seen Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
I think most people have. I couldn't tell you, but I've not seen Sunset Boulevard. Okay, we'll have to look at that one. You just going back a little bit though, where you were saying about them singing "Crying" in Spanish, yeah.
Oh, Llorando, yeah.
Yo estaba bien por un tiempo, volviendo a sonreír.
Yeah.
Well, the thing was, this is really probably very inappropriate because I know you, Ed. You were probably watching that, yeah. I'm thinking, feeling the moment.
Luego anoche te vi, tu mano me tocó y el saludo de tu voz.
In touch with your feelings. I was watching it and was thinking,
Te hablé muy bien y tú, sin saber que he estado.
crying.
Tony Angelino.
Yeah, honestly, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. When I was there, I was listening to it. I was thinking, obviously, it was in Spanish, and I was like, "Oh, I know this song. I know this song." I was like, "Oh, I definitely know this song." And then got to the line, and she was singing it with, doing her best, and all I heard in my head was, "Crying, crying." So.
Oh dear. Well, you said earlier about the length of the film.
Yeah.
David Lynch doesn't make short films. It's part of his style where he tends to have scenes that meander and they go on, and you think, where's he going with this? There's got to be a payoff, and there never is. In the new Twin Peaks, he did it's 5 years old. There's a couple of scenes spring to mind in that. There's one, it's right at the end of an episode, and literally for about 4 minutes, it's a man sweeping a floor to Green Onions by Booker T and the MGs. That's the scene. I think, where's this going? And it's the credits roll. And there's another scene where David Lynch is actually in Twin Peaks. He plays one of the FBI directors, and he's in a room with his young French girlfriend, and one of the other agents comes in to see him, so he has to break off their romantic liaison. And it's literally 3 or 4 minutes of them making eyes at each other and blowing kisses and waving. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And once you get the man, you think, yeah, that's so David. He just doesn't care. He makes films as he wants to make films. It's the original Twin Peaks, going back to that. You haven't seen it. I won't do any spoilers at all. I think he fell out of love with the studio who made it because they didn't let him make it his way. There's 3 or 4 episodes you can tell they're the David Lynch directed episodes. Twin Peaks: The Return, which was 25 years later, imagine Mulholland Drive but 18 hours long.
Oh God. Yeah, well,
that's what it's like. No studio, purely his vision, no studio interference. But that's the sort of director he is. As I said before, he's an artist whose canvas is film. That's the best. I know it sounds very pretentious, but it's the best way of describing him. And I think he's a true eccentric with no pretensions at all. if you look at his YouTube channel, every day he does the weather, and he does David Lynch's number of the day for no good reason apart from that he does it.
Yeah, okay, right. I'll have to look into that. I mean, no, go on.
So Mulholland Drive, though, is probably viewed, generally speaking, by critics as his masterpiece. It won, the BBC did greatest, I mean, it's only 16 years into the 21st century, but they did the greatest film of the 21st century poll in 2016, and Mulholland Drive won it as the greatest film of the 21st century. It was nominated for Oscars, didn't win. It won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. I think it cost something like $15 million to make, and it made a modest, very modest profit. It made 20 million in the cinemas, but it's made a lot more on home media. And it's like a lot of sort of masterpieces. They're not appreciated at their time, but it's become a classic over time.
Well, exactly, just like Short Circuit in Masters of the Universe, which is a closer, complete comparison.
But it is. But that's the thing. It is a comparison because every film is relevant. Every director's got their vision, and David Lynch is just as relevant as, I don't know, think of a director, an action director, I don't know.
John McTiernan.
John McTiernan,
So he's done two of my favourites.
But they're both artists in their own style. Their output might be different, but they're both artists. And just because one has got more of an artsy, sort of pretentious following than the others, doesn't make the other any less of an artist. They both work in the same medium, but their output's different.
Yeah. I mean, going back to what you just said there about the film and some scenes going nowhere, I think, Tarantino is a bit like that, really, when you watch a Tarantino film. Although I do, maybe not quite as much, I think all of his scenes probably do have a meaning. And probably do tie into the story somewhere. It's about whether the penny's dropped. Like sometimes you'll watch it and then you'll realise, oh, that's referencing back to that conversation before. But then you do watch something and you just think, okay, that film didn't really. Well, for me, I tend to think, I'm not sure that film benefited from that scene, and I probably would have preferred a shorter runtime. But maybe I've not got a good. Clearly, that maybe says something about my concentration span. So.
I've got a factoid for you that you might not know about Mulholland Drive. It was originally planned as a pilot for a TV series.
Okay. I can probably see that. You could probably make that story spin out over a few episodes, couldn't you?
Yeah, I think the pilot sort of went as far as, I think, when they go to Diane Selwyn's apartment and find a dead body. And it stopped there, I think. And then it was going to be a series, and this whole series was finding out who Rita really was.
Got you.
And I think it would have ended then. How the film ended, I think that would be the last episode.
Might have been a frustrating series, that, though.
I think you would probably have got to know the people that live on Sunset Boulevard. You had episodes that, about different people, how the interactions between them work, and how this strange mob was that was running the casting process. You probably that had probably been expanded quite a bit, but it was originally a series. It got turned down as a TV pilot, so he recut it, filmed some more scenes, and made it into a film. So that's my little factoid on it.
Well, that's really, I could see how that might work. You could make it spin out. I just wonder whether you'd be a bit disappointed when you got to the end and you kind of, in essence, realised that actually the last 6 weeks of your life where you were watching it religiously was all a dream. Like cue Bobby Ewing in Dallas. So, don't know. Yeah, so what I didn't know, and obviously you've already mentioned it, is that he wrote Twin Peaks. Created Twin Peaks, because actually, even though I've never seen it, I'm a massive fan of the X-Files, and Chris Carter has pointed towards that as some of his inspiration for some of it. Although having said that means very little to me really, because if I haven't seen it, so I just take his word for it. Like, okay, Chris, I know you've seen a little bit of the X-Files, very little snippets,
First 4 series I think I've seen of the X-Files, but it was a long time ago. It was back in VHS times.
So yeah, would you say that there is a comparison in a way?
I would say definitely. You've got, I mean, whereas the X-Files is sort of, but it begins is Monster of the Week. Twin Peaks is set in the town of Twin Peaks, so it's got a setting. It's almost sort of set up like a subversive soap opera, I would say. So no spoilers. This is, if you pick up the DVD, this will be on the back of it. Twin Peaks begins with the murder of the prom queen, Laura Palmer. Her body's found wrapped in plastic and basically badly mutilated and dead. There's also another girl who's been badly sexually assaulted and attacked and lost her mind because of it. But because she crosses the state line, they have to get the FBI involved. So rather than the local sheriff investigating, they get the FBI. Kyle MacLachlan, playing Special Agent Dale Cooper, is sent to Twin Peaks to investigate the murder of Laura Palmer. So far, so sort of, to a cop show really, with a little bit of quirkiness to it. It goes in all sorts of directions, and I can absolutely see Fox Mulder and Dana Scully being in it at some point. It's the sort of world they would inhabit. Actually, David Duchovny does play an FBI agent in it later on, called a transvestite one called Agent Denise Bryson.
Diane, when I've got a moment, remind me to tell you about Agent Bryson.
I just love Milford weddings.
Unfair advantage. How many of those girls were varsity wide receivers? Very few. Bad news first. I found cocaine residue in your car, and my guess is it will match the lot stolen from the Mountie.
Dennis, this can't appear straight to you.
Denise.
Sorry.
It's okay. Well, sure, it looks like a frame, Coop, but I'm gonna need more than your opinion to make that stick.
Can you help me?
Well, that gets into a very delicate area. But on the other hand, I'm trying very hard recently to get more in touch with my feelings.
So,
okay.
So he is in it sort of, say, the second half of the series. He's in it for 3 or 4 episodes. But I'm struggling to think when I read it, because I know I read it somewhere in the 90s, that when Twin Peaks was cancelled, those people wanted more. And I'm sure it's season 4 or 5 of the X-Files, there was an episode planned called Who Killed Agent Cooper, where Mulder and Scully are sent to Twin Peaks to find out what had actually happened to the missing Special Agent Dale Cooper. Unfortunately, nothing happened, but I can distinctly recall reading it somewhere. I can't find the evidence online for it. I've looked and looked.
Nor can I, Ed. Since you mentioned it, I've been looking into that.
I read it it was either a Twin Peaks magazine or an X-Files magazine. It was something. But I remember the episode plan was called Who Killed Agent Cooper? And it was them going to Twin Peaks and trying to find one of their colleagues, their colleague who'd been doing the Laura Palmer investigation. So
yeah, it could be, or it could be that you've a bit like Mulholland Drive, just dreamt it.
Just dreamt it.
No, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. Well, it would make sense, really. Yeah. Well, yeah. What I mean, not make sense necessarily, but yeah, it's well within the realms of possibility based on things that I've read.
Yeah, if you want to watch Twin Peaks, and I highly, highly recommend it, don't get any spoilers. Go in completely spoiler-free, because I think the murder investigation it'll wrap you in knots. It's probably the best murder mystery you'll ever see. And I watched it countless times. And even now when the killer's revealed, I'm like, no, it can't be.
So let's have a look then. So hang on. What did we do in the world before things like Google? Other search engines are available.
We had to go to libraries.
Yeah, we had to go. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. Twin Peaks, yeah. Okay, so Wikipedia. So how many series? No, I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to look on the side here. There's only three seasons.
Yeah, 2 seasons in the 90s, and then there's a prequel film which don't watch till you've seen the 2 series. What happens towards the end of the final episode of the 2nd series, I won't tell you which character. One character says to another, "I'll see you again in 25 years." And that's the 3rd series, 25 years later.
I don't want any spoilers. It's fine. I'm going to purchase it. To be honest, I'm pretty sure I've seen it in CEX. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, you might be able to pick it up.
I'll try and pick it up there. So.
It's not as Lynch as, to use it as a description, it's not as Lynch as Mulholland Drive, because he was working under the studio system. So he had to make it accessible to mainstream television audiences. There are flashes of the Lynchiness in it, the direction style, the vocal patterns, the music, but it's a lot more accessible than Mulholland Drive.
Okay. Now,
the third series is not as accessible as Mulholland Drive. It's a lot more Lynch without any restraints.
Okay. Well, I'll go with it. I'm prepared to go with it, especially because the DVDs will probably be cheap. So, actually, moving on. I mean, obviously, like we do with most of our shows, really, we choose a topic and then we talk about everything else. No, but on the topic of David Lynch, though, yeah. So, Mulholland Rabbits. Was it Rabbit? Yeah.
Rabbits.
Rabbit. Okay, I've seen a couple of stills from it. Might have watched a couple of things on YouTube. I think you watched it the other night because you sent me
all 45 minutes of it.
Oh yeah, what the hell is going on, Ed? Come on now.
Okay, so Rabbits was a thing he did for his own website around about the same time he was making Mulholland Drive. So 2 of the people inside the Rabbits are Naomi Watts and Laura Harring.
No, I suppose that makes it a bit more legitimate for me, I suppose. Yeah, go on.
One of those is somebody else. It was released on his website as a series of shorts. And it was almost like a parody of your 50s American sitcom where someone walked like Happy Days, the Fonz comes in and everyone goes, "Ray!" The door opens, a rabbit comes in, everyone goes, "Ray!" and starts laughing. And they sit down and they spout, which to the surface they spout nonsense. But I think my interpretation of Rabbits as a whole is that little apartment they're in, there's a presence there. And they don't want the presence to know that they know it's there. So they're sort of talking code to each other, I think.
Right.
But Rabbits was actually used in the film Inland Empire. There's a few scenes in it where you've got a lady in a hotel room watching television and it just zooms into these episodes of Rabbits and then it cuts back away again. So that's my interpretation of it, is that they're sort of trying to talk without being in code to each other. And again, you've got the sort of creepy ambient noise in the background.
Well, I don't really get that, but I'm sure. No. Well, okay. I'll give it. I suppose I'll give anything a go. I tell you what, I did see the other day.
It's not essential. I promise you.
I'll tell you what, I did see for the first time ever, which had a rabbit in, which was quite good the other night. Was Fatal Attraction. Never seen Fatal Attraction.
That's what. Come on, we'll go back. Films Ed hasn't seen. Fatal Attraction.
Well, listen, I don't think it's going to be any surprise for anyone, really, Ed. I love. They can't see you here, but there was a little look in your face then, as in, I know you're going to be shocked about this, Ashley. I'm like, no, Ed, it's easier to list the films you have seen.
Yeah, so I think really, without going into the, let's explain Mulholland Drive to people who haven't seen it, because I think everyone should watch it and draw their own conclusions for it. Really, I haven't got much else to say apart from watch it. It's probably not going to be anything like anything you've ever seen before. It might irritate you. It might fascinate you. It will definitely intrigue you. It might bore you. It might horrify you. You might fall in love with it. You might not fall in love with it, but you will never have seen anything quite like it. And I don't think anything's been made quite like it before or quite like it since. Even Lynch's other films have got different vibes, and this has got a more ethereal, romantic vibe than his other films. The other films are quite harsh. This has got even though when you watch it, you might think the ending, the subject matter is not very nice. it's got a sort of like almost like a calm vibe all the way through it, it's kind of calm ambience. So yeah, I would say give it a go. Watch it once. If you don't like it, that's absolutely fine. If you do like it, you won't watch it just once. You'll watch it several times, and every time you watch it, you'll probably see a different film.
And I think and for me, because I probably don't go as in depth as you. I mean, we like some of the same films, but we like a different type of film as well. For me, I watched it. I was bored. Okay, well, a little bit bored. Okay, so this is how it goes. Bored, intrigued. Ooh, where's this going? Bored, intrigued. Now I'm getting it. Okay, yeah. Oh, hang on. I'll go with this. Yeah. I got it. No, I haven't actually. So we have, on that bombshell, we have been Bow Ties Are Sometimes Cool. Ed, good night.
Silencio.
I'll be quiet.